Hey everyone, my name's Justin and welcome to my Gear Corner. On today's episode, we're going to be going over John Mayer's full delay pedal history. So sit back, relax, and let's get right into the video. Now, in order to start our timeline off, we have to go all the way back to Room for Squares and Any Given Thursday. We know John did have a Boss DD5 on his board, and that's about it. Just a straightforward, simple digital delay pedal. Now, of course, we move on to heavier things, and this unfortunately is the area we have the least information on. All of John's pedals were in a custom audio electronics rack, and he had a switcher in front of him, and there's really no pictures from this era at all out of what he had in the rack. So anything I could say is going to be pure speculation. So instead of just guessing and saying what I think he might have used, let's just move on right into the John Mayer trio. Now, during the John Mayer trio era, John first started using the delay that he is perhaps most famous for, and that is the Octopus, the MK1 made by George Stripes in the 1990s. Now, if you haven't watched my video on the top 5 things people most commonly get wrong about John Mayer's gear, I did go back in there and explain that there are actually 2 different versions of the Octopus that George Stripes built back then. Now, the version that John first started using is the Octopus AP2. This is the one where all the knobs face the exact same direction. And he also used the T-Rex replica delay. It's kind of a nice long delay. So Octopus was mainly for slapback, and then you have the T-Rex for his longer delay needs. Now during Continuum, we do know that John used the Trio pedal board as the foundation for his effects. So it's safe to assume an Octopus AP2 was present as well as the T-Rex replica delay. Now, of course, for In Repair, John famously used that Line 6 DL4 to get that sound and the looping within it for In Repair. So we know that that was for sure used during the recording as well. We don't know if there was a Pete Cornish TES during this time. It's likely, but there's no photo evidence as of right now to prove it during the recording of Continuum. We do know that shortly after the recording, during rehearsals, John did start using the Pete Cornish TES. So it's very plausible that that was present during the recording of Continuum, but again, like I said, if there's no photo evidence, we can't say for certain if it was there or not. Now, of course, during the Continuum tour and Where the Light Is, John did have a Boss DD3 in the loop with the POG for In Repair. The Pete Cornish TES was used for those longer delays, like on Belief during Where the Light Is, as well as, of course, the way huge Octopus AP2. Now, during the Battle Studies era, John ditched the Pete Cornish TES delay in favor of the Eventide Time Factor. He actually had 2 of these in the rack unit. He also, of course, kept the Octopus AP2 as it's a staple of his delay sound. In 2009, for Michael Jackson's funeral, was the first time that we saw John use the MXR carbon copy delay, and that was the first of only a handful of times we ever get to see him using that delay. Now, after John took a bit of a hiatus, this moves us on into the Born and Raised and Paradise Valley era. Now, during Paradise Valley, John interestingly used the Moore Ana Echo delay, which is quite an interesting choice for him as it's kind of a lower end delay, but hey, it worked for him and it sounded great. John also started using the Octopus AP1 during this era. So kind of cool that we know this is the transition period where he started to primarily use the AP1 as his main Octopus delay. John also went back to using the Pete Cornish TES as his main delay. 2015 was an interesting year. John Mayer decided to experiment with the Way Huge Supapus. He used it for Clapton's 70th birthday as well as Stevie Ray Vaughan's introduction to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Other than those 2 times, we haven't seen him bring it out since. Now, of course, we're getting into the Search for Everything era as well as early days of the Dead & Company, and John used the same board for both, so there's going to be some crossover here. We have a Dunlop Echoplex that he used. He used a Boonar from Donner Prince. We also have a Mark II Octopus, which is kind of the first time we really see John using for a massive tour the Dunlop version of the Octopus, not the old 1990s original version. We also have the Strymon Timeline for some MIDI capability and some massive delay effects. Now, during the Dead & Company shows in 2018, John mainly stuck with the Mark II Octopus from Way Huge, as well as the Strymon Timeline. The carbon copy from MXR did actually see some use during this timeline as well. In 2018, we also famously have John going on stage and performing with Shawn Mendes. And now for delay is the first time we know that he has used these 2 delays. He used a Way Huge Mark III, the Smalls edition, as well as the Providence Delay 80s, which is a TES style delay. This is the first time that we've really seen John ever use both of these delays. To round off 2018, we have the Mac Miller Celebration of Life performance on October 31st. This was at the Greek Theater in LA. On John's pedal board, he went back from the Octopus MK3 to the MK2. He also had the Pete Cornish TES delay along with the Providence Delay 80s. It's clear in 2018 that John was experimenting with the Providence Delay 80s against that Pete Cornish TES, as they both do a very similar thing. Ultimately, the Providence Delay 80s is the one he stuck with, and this is the last time we actually ever see him use the Pete Cornish TES. Now we're getting near the end of our timeline in the history of John's delay use. We are talking about the 2019 World Tour. During this World Tour, John went back to using the Octopus AP1 back from the 1990s. John also used a T-Rex replay box, which is a new delay for him with a tap tempo. We also have the Chase Bliss Audio Tonal Recall Red Knob mod was used, as well as the Providence Delay 80s like he used with Shawn Mendes. Now, as the 2019 tour evolved, there were a few changes in terms of delay for John's pedal board, mainly being John started using the Providence Chrono delay over the T-Rex replay box. This became quite a favorite for his, as he also started using it with the Dead & Company later in 2019 and into 2020. Now, of course, in 2019, we also have the Dead & Company Summer Tour, in which John used the Strymon Volante for his main delay source. Moving into Playing in the Sand in January of 2020, however, John ditched the Volante in favor of that Providence Chrono delay, which really does seem to be his new favorite delay. Now, right before the pandemic began, we saw John play with David Ryan Harris at the Hotel Cafe in February of 2020. He used a Mark II Octopus as well for that small pedal board that he brought to that show. Now, of course, the last stop on our timeline is going to be the Grammys of 2021. John did bring out again the Providence Chrono for his delay. There was no Octopus on that board. So if you want a delay that John has used quite often as well for the main long delay sound, I highly recommend the Providence Chrono. The tap tempo is amazing. The screen on it, the AB as well, you have for two different settings. It's a great pedal, and I think Providence makes some of the best delay pedals in the world. There you guys have it. That's the full history of John's delay pedal use. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you learned something, please give the video a thumbs up, as it helps the channel grow and spread the information to more people who might be looking for it. As well, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That helps me out greatly, and I really do appreciate the support. Until the next video, take care, stay safe, and thank you guys so much for watching.